All right, so this is going to be a review of Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves, the newest Dungeons and Dragons movie. I watched the original Dungeons and Dragons from 2000 and I reviewed it, and that one sucks. I completely hated that one. This movie, I'll tell you right off the bat, is much better, far better than that one. and yeah, it's not hard to do that. It's directed by John Francis Daly and Jonathan Goldstein, and I saw they'd done some other things, Game Night, which I never saw, Vacation, which I did see and I hated. But I'll say how I feel about this one in a second. So it starts off with Edgin and Holga, that's played by Chris Pine and Michelle Rodriguez. They're prisoners. They've been imprisoned for 2 years because Edgin had put together this group of thieves. There was some stuff that happened before that that led to it, but he put together this group of thieves, and they were trying to go after this tablet that would resurrect his dead wife. And so he leaves his daughter behind, things like that. They go to do it. They get betrayed by a sorceress, Sophina, played by Daisy Head, and that's how they ended up getting imprisoned. And so they end up escaping and things like that. Then they go to re-meet up with somebody that was part of their group, Forge, played by Hugh Grant, and he is now the leader of, I think it was called Everwinter, something like that. He's now seen as like a lord, and the sorceress is still there with him. It was with her help that he was able to, I guess, take control. And he doesn't want to give the daughter back. I guess he likes being a father figure to the daughter or something like that. So he sends them to be executed. They get away. So now they have to put together a team again, partially with somebody they worked with before that was already part of their team. And, they have to save the daughter and then also steal from a vault and then deal with some other things that the sorceress has going on. So how do I feel about this movie? I think it's really good. I actually really enjoyed it. I have some things to say, right? One thing I think is pretty big, but we'll get to that. But yeah, I really like this movie. It has a lot going for it. Great production design. The costume design works too. It really brings the setting to life. I think the costume design is better with like the main characters, but for the most part, it still works and builds this world. There's some great comedy moments between the characters. Like one of the characters said that Forge was a son of a bitch, and one of the other characters is like, so you blame his mother and stuff like that, things like that. There's little small moments that are really funny between the characters. They have really good banter back and forth. I actually think that's the main strength here is the characters. I started to really like them and get invested in them. Some of the storytelling doesn't work. We'll get to that. But I really liked all these characters. I think the performances are all great. I think they have great interactions with each other. They feel like a ragtag group, kind of a group of misfits that have to go on this adventure, on this journey, and essentially try to make it up as they go along, right? They have plan A, plan B. Oh, we go back to plan A. Oh, now we're on plan B again. And things just don't go right, but they have to kind of figure it out while it's happening, which is really exciting, especially towards the end. They're just so good. Like I want to see these characters again go on other adventures because of how good they were. Like it definitely made me think of like Guardians of the Galaxy, like the first one, which I love. This movie's not as good as that movie, but it made me feel the way I did watching that, where I'm just into the characters and seeing them come together and work together, use their strengths, their powers, learn along the way, have small little character arcs. It really works. The action is all well done, well choreographed for the most part. Michelle Rodriguez does a really good job with the action. I think Chris Pine does the best with the banter. He's the more witty one. He's the leader, but he's also the one that gives the most comedic moments. And then Michelle Rodriguez, I think, is the best with the actual physical stuff, the fighting. And all the fights are done great, well shot, well edited, things like that. There's also this point, one of the characters can shapeshift into different like beasts and things and animals, and one of the characters was running away from the sorceress at one point, and you get to see them changing into all different animals while she's trying to get away. And I'm pretty sure that was all like a continuous shot. It might not have been, but it felt like it was, and it was really creative. It really blew me away. All right, with that being said, let's get to negatives. So I write notes for these whenever I watch them at home, and well, I write notes for when I go to the theater too, but I gotta wait till I come home. So I'm watching this, and of course I'm taking notes, and I did the same thing for the original Dungeons and Dragons. And this movie has, I think, the same problem as that original movie did, where world building and development are kind of uh, not done as well as they should be at the very least, where it gets to the point where terms are just being thrown at you, and it is crazy. Like, there are so many terms for this thing, this thing, this thing, so many characters. And it got to the point where I was writing things down so I could remember them for the review, and I just stopped because it is a lot of explaining and throwing terms out there, and it doesn't help me get a actual grasp of the world.
No, I've heard of Zank. He's a paladin. He helped the Enclave defeat the clerics of Talos.
I know the name as well. My uncle said Zank fended off a beholder using only a sharpened gourd.
A sharpened gourd?
Something sharp.
If Fitzwilliam is truly allied with a red wizard, their intentions must go beyond the mere political. Over a century ago, the necromancer Zas Tam was one of 8 Zulkirs who ruled the nation of Thay.
Great history lesson.
I mean, this movie goes into very heavy-handed exposition. I mean, constantly. It feels like the movie, it's mainly in that first half. That was when I was having most of my issues, is because it is just endless. The movie starts with Chris Pine, Aiken going through all the backstory of the thieves and how they got taken and stuff like that, which I thought flowed into the story, but it's still a bit much. But it kept stopping to do that, especially with the way they go to get the other characters for their group. It's very repetitive, and it basically is they'll be walking or going somewhere, riding a horse, and they'll be like, we need to go get this person because of this reason or whatever. Then they pop up there at that person, right? It's almost like they have fast travel at points. And then they talk to the person doesn't want to go. They go into some spiel about something, explain something, and then they finally decide, oh, I guess I'll go, and then we move on. And that happens at least a few times, really, with every new person that they get after Michelle Rodriguez and Chris Pine, because they're always together. But then when they go to get the other characters, then it's like, it's a lot. I mean, it is endless exposition at a certain point where it's just constantly stopping for it and going into these spiels about the these different stories of what happened, this war that happened. I mean, some of it's still done effectively. Like they went to go talk to those dead people, and those dead people, as they bring them to life, each one has a different perspective of what happened in that war. Like, there's some creative stuff here. They do it well at certain points, but it's still too much, I think, to the point where it actually makes the world more confusing. It is a little tonally off because it's mainly comedic, and early on, characters would go into these emotional, exposition scenes or backstories, and then it would be followed all the way up there with a comedic tone with jokes, and then it would undercut that with a joke, like right at the end, to where you didn't really feel anything. Everything felt comedic and light, to the point where the emotional scenes or scenes where people would really, get serious about things kind of don't have as much weight as they should because of that. At least until the end. At the end, they kind of let those moments breathe. Before that, it's like, okay, we're still going to keep this tone, right? So I think that's all I have. I think that's all I wrote in my notes. It's definitely far better than that one from 2000. That one, I mean, that's one of the worst movies I've ever seen, I think, and I've seen some shit. But it is actually a really good movie, way better than I thought it would be. Great action, great characters, and character moments. It's very funny. Seeing these characters go on this journey together and have to take on dragons and do all this other stuff and use their wit and their powers, their abilities to get through it, and being kind of bumbling along the way and kind of making it up as they go along. It was a lot of fun. And I wasn't expecting that much from this, but I ended up really liking it, especially by the end. I think the end is really strong. As far as rating, I'm going to give it awesome. I think it's really good. I think it definitely succeeds more than it fails when it comes to like exposition and stuff like that, and like certain story things that don't work. But I really enjoyed it. This is the reason why I try to give movies a chance, because I can be surprised, and I definitely was here. So anyway, yeah, that's Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves, or Dungeons and Dragons 2023. And subscribe, and we're done.